Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to decode an ancient strategy, one that can totally transform how you handle conflict and pressure. We're going to explore how the most powerful move you can make is often no move at all.
Okay, let's start with something I know we've all been through. Just think about the last time someone said something that just made your blood boil. You know, maybe a boss criticized you in front of the whole team, or you found out a friend was talking behind your back. What was that first instinct? I have to say something, right now. And you did. You poured all your energy, all that emotion into a comeback. And then what? A few hours later, you're just replaying it, thinking, I wish I'd said something else, something better.
See, here's the powerful idea we're going to unpack today. True strength isn't in how fast you respond, it's in your ability to control that response. The person who just instantly lashes out, they show all their cards, they lose their cool, and ultimately, they give away all their power.
Right, so let's really dive into this. When you react immediately, I don't care if it's with anger or some witty comeback, you're basically playing a game that someone else set up. You're giving them exactly what they want, your emotional reaction. And as soon as they have that, they can guess your next move. And guess what? You're not in control anymore. They are.
But what if you did nothing? What if you just stayed silent? Well, your silence does something an angry reply never could. It creates something called cognitive disruption. You just completely shatter their script. They were geared up for a fight, a drama, and you gave them nothing, a void. And that makes them anxious, it makes them second-guess themselves, and it puts you back in the driver's seat by making you totally unreadable.
Now, you might be thinking this is some kind of new self-help idea, but it's not. Not even close. Over 2,500 years ago, the legendary military strategist Sun Tzu laid out this exact principle in his book, The Art of War. It's basically a guide to winning without ever having to draw your sword.
This quote pretty much sums up his entire philosophy. For Sun Tzu, if you actually have to get into a physical fight, you've already made a strategic mistake. The real victory, the supreme victory, is one where your opponent is defeated before the battle even starts. It's a war you win in the mind, not on the battlefield.
So if reacting is so counterproductive, why is it our first instinct? Why is it so hard not to react? Well, modern psychology has a really clear answer, and it all comes down to the ancient wiring in our brains.
You see, deep in your brain, you've got this ancient little alarm system called the amygdala. And when it thinks there's a threat, it triggers a massive emotional response. And it does it way, way faster than the logical thinking part of your brain can even catch up. This is what's called an amygdala hijack. It's your emotional brain literally hijacking the controls before your rational brain even knows what's happening.
And here's the crucial part. That ancient brain of ours can't really tell the difference between a real life-or-death threat, like seeing a lion, and a simple threat to our ego, like a snarky comment from a relative at dinner. Both can trigger the exact same intense fight-or-flight response. The problem is, lashing out at your aunt might feel good for a second, but it's not about survival. It's just feeding your ego.
Okay, so knowing about this amygdala hijack is the key to defeating it. And the solution, well, it was described perfectly by the psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor Viktor Frankl, a man who saw human behavior under the most extreme pressure imaginable.
This is honestly one of the most powerful things ever said about strength. Your power isn't what happens to you. It's not even your reaction. Your real power is in that tiny little gap you can create between the two. That pause. The person who can master that pause, who can live in that little space, they're the most powerful person in any room, period.
So let's see how this actually works in the real world. Because this isn't about being a doormat, not at all. It's about being incredibly strategic. It's about setting yourself up to win long before any conflict even starts.
And science actually proves the power of this pause. You've probably heard of the famous marshmallow test. Back in the 60s, researchers gave little kids a choice. You can have this one marshmallow right now. Or, if you can wait 15 minutes while I'm out of the room, you can have two. It's a super simple test of delaying your impulses.
But what they found when they followed up with these kids years later was absolutely mind-blowing. The kids who could wait for that second marshmallow had way better outcomes in pretty much everything. School, careers, even relationships. It was never about the marshmallow, of course. It was about their ability to handle discomfort and control an impulse. And that one skill predicted success across their entire lives.
Now, here's a really important distinction. We're not talking about unhealthy repression, pretending you're not angry or hurt. That's just running away from your feelings. No, we're talking about healthy restraint. This is where you fully acknowledge the feeling,
You feel the anger, you feel the frustration, that urge to react, but you make a conscious choice not to act on it. Not yet. You look that feeling in the eye and say, I see you, but not now.
Let's look at this idea of being formless, so unreadable that nobody can figure out your next move. When Ratan Tata took over as chairman of the massive Tata Group in 1991, he was hit with a storm of criticism. The media said he was the wrong guy. His rivals attacked him in public. It was brutal.
Now, what would most people do? They'd fight back, right? They'd give interviews, defend themselves. Ratan Tata did none of that. He said nothing. No press conferences, no angry statements, nothing. He just put his head down and got to work. And his silence made him impossible to fight. I mean, how do you attack an opponent who refuses to even get in the ring with you?
So what was the result? Over the next 2 decades, he grew the company's revenue 40 times over. He didn't waste a single ounce of energy fighting his critics. He just made them irrelevant. By the time they looked up, he'd already won. And they had no choice but to write stories about him being one of the greatest business leaders in India's history.
We see this exact same thing in sports with the legendary cricketer MS Dhoni. Think about this. He was made captain of a team full of living legends when he was just 26 years old. Most people would have tried to come in loud, assert their authority. He did the exact opposite. He just observed, he learned, and then he acted decisively. From his totally unpredictable high-stakes move in the 2011 World Cup final to the way he just quietly retired without any drama, Dhoni's whole career was a masterclass in calm, calculated action. He always won the battle in his mind long before he ever set foot on the field.
So, the big question, how do we actually use this in our own lives? Well, it doesn't start with some big, dramatic change. It starts with a really simple, practical technique you can use the very next time you feel that emotional heat start to rise.
That's it. It sounds almost too simple, right? The next time you feel that trigger go off, just force yourself to pause. Count to 10. In that tiny little window of time, you get to decide. Are you going to be a master of the situation or a slave to your impulse? These 10 seconds might seem small, but believe me, that's where the entire battle is won or lost.
And this really is the final takeaway. This whole idea isn't about learning to win arguments better. It's about getting to a place where arguments become unnecessary. It's about building your position, your composure, your value so clearly and so solidly that nobody even thinks about challenging you in the first place. Every single time you hold that pause, every time you choose restraint instead of reaction, you are building a quiet, unshakable strength inside you. You're winning the only victory that truly matters, the one over yourself.